My parents tried to force me to become my disabled sister's full-time caregiver after I sacrificed my entire childhood for her. So I called Adult Protective Services for abandonment. I'm 25 now and have been living on my own for 3 years in this ground floor flat that I worked my butt off to afford. My older sister, Holly, is 32 and has cerebral palsy and learning disabilities that require round-the-clock care. My parents have cared for her whole life, and honestly, my entire childhood revolved around Holly's needs. I never had birthday parties because Holly couldn't handle the noise. They say blood is thicker than water, right? But for me, it was a suffocating chokehold. What would you do if the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, your own parents, tried to use your disabled sister as a weapon to force you into a life you never wanted? And when you said no, they launched an all-out war to destroy everything you'd fought for. My entire childhood was a blur of no's. No dance classes, no soccer teams, no sleepovers with friends. Why? Because my parents couldn't drive me to practice and watch Holly at the same time. Every family vacation was to the same handicap-accessible cabin, 2 hours away, because Holly couldn't handle change. It was always about Holly. Always. The second I turned 18, I was out. I got a job at a call center, went to night school, pulling 60-hour weeks. I scraped and fought for my degree in graphic design and finally landed a remote job that paid decently. I found this little flat just perfect for me. Close to shops, a tiny garden, everything I never had growing up. My parents, they visited maybe twice in all the years I lived there. They only called when they needed me to watch Holly so they could go to a doctor's appointment or grocery shopping. And every single time I said yes, even though Holly would scream and throw things because, you guessed it, she didn't like change. Then, about 6 months ago, my dad started making these casual comments. Your flat would be perfect for Holly, he'd say. It's all one level, wide doorways, an accessible bathroom. He even started pointing out modifications I could make for her wheelchair. I just laughed it off. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? I thought he was just making conversation. Not long after, my mom started prying about my work schedule. How flexible is it? She'd ask. Could you work while caring for someone? I told her I was happy with my situation. Tried to change the subject. But the alarm bells were starting to ring in the back of my mind. 2 months later, they invited me to dinner. It wasn't a dinner, it was an ambush. They dropped a bombshell. They'd already talked to Holly's social worker about transferring her care to me. They'd researched government assistance I could get as her caregiver. They'd even figured out how to modify my flat with grant money. They laid out this whole plan, this detailed blueprint for my life. I'd take Holly during the week, they'd take weekends. Absolutely not, I said. Just like that. My mom started crying, of course. We're so tired, she sobbed. We've given up everything for Holly, and now it's your turn to help. My dad chimed in, his voice dripping with accusation. You're being selfish, living alone in a flat that could house Holly when we're struggling. That's when something inside me snapped. I already gave up my entire childhood for Holly. I shot back. No dance classes, no sleepovers, no college visits. Everything was about Holly. They just looked at me, dismissive. That was different, my mom said, wiping her eyes. You were a child then. You didn't understand sacrifice. Now you're an adult and you need to step up. I walked out. I didn't speak to them for 2 weeks. But that was just the beginning. Their campaign started. They called every single relative, telling them I was abandoning my disabled sister. My aunt called me, crying, asking how I could let Holly suffer. My grandma, bless her heart, said she was disappointed. My cousins, the keyboard warriors, posted passive-aggressive rants on Facebook about ableism and family responsibility, clearly aimed right at me. Then came the physical intrusions. They started bringing Holly to my flat uninvited, just leaving her at my door, claiming they had some emergency. The first time I let them in, I watched Holly for 6 long hours while they just disappeared. The second time, oh no, I called Adult Protective Services. I reported abandonment. My parents had to rush back, red-faced, to deal with a social worker. They were absolutely furious, but couldn't say much with the official standing right there. Next, the guilt trip. They had Holly call me, crying, saying she missed me and wanted to live with me. It was so transparent, I knew they'd coached her. Holly never expressed complex thoughts like that. They sent me photos of a sad-looking Holly with captions designed to twist the knife. They even made a scrapbook of us as kids to show our bond, conveniently ignoring that in every single photo, I looked miserable, while Holly got all the attention. The absolute last straw was when they called my employer. My job. They told my boss I was needed for a family medical emergency and might need extended leave to care for my disabled sister. My boss, bless him, was understanding but concerned about my workload. I had to explain everything, mortified, and promise it wouldn't affect my job. That's when I knew. This had to end. Permanently. I spent the entire weekend at my kitchen table, eyes burning, searching lawyer websites. Family harassment lawyer, forced caregiving legal help. I typed everything I could think of. Most sites were slick, full of stock photos, but I needed someone who got it. Then, around evening, I found Amelia Coleman's site. Her bio specialized in boundary violations and family coercion. It felt like she was describing my exact situation. I filled out her contact form right then. Just the basics, parents showing up, calling my boss. She had an opening Monday morning. I booked it, trying not to think about the cost. Monday morning, I logged into the video call 5 minutes early, a notebook full of dates and details clutched in my hand. Amelia appeared right at 9 o'clock. She looked maybe 40, short dark hair, sharp eyes that felt like they were already dissecting my soul. I started explaining, trying to keep my voice steady. But within 2 minutes, she stopped me. "What your parents are doing," she said, her voice calm but firm, "isn't just annoying or pushy. It's financial and emotional abuse." Abuse. The word hit me like a physical blow. I'd been thinking of it as family drama, a horrible inconvenience. But she explained their campaign had serious legal implications. She asked about the call to my employer, and I showed her the email my boss had sent. Amelia leaned forward, a glint in her eye. "That's workplace interference," she said. "We can use that." We spent the next hour systematically going through everything. She had me pull up my phone. The guilt trip texts, the sad Holly photos, the Facebook posts from relatives. She made notes about the 2 times they'd shown up at my flat, especially that second time I called APS. "Do you have the police report from that incident?" she asked. I told her the officer gave me a case number. "Get a copy immediately," she instructed. "Documentation is everything." By the end of the call, I had a list of things to gather, a detailed timeline. And for the first time, I felt like someone finally believed me. This wasn't just me being dramatic. Tuesday evening, I was working on a design project when my doorbell rang. Almost 7 o'clock. The bell rang again. Then a hard knock. My heart started racing. I looked through the peephole. My dad's car was outside, Holly visible in the passenger seat. My mom was at my door, knocking harder now, yelling through the door about an emergency, needing me to watch Holly. My dad joined her, his voice booming. "You're being selfish and childish." I grabbed my phone and called the non-emergency police line. I explained my parents were refusing to leave. The dispatcher said an officer would come. They kept knocking, kept yelling for another 10 minutes. My dad was still harping about my flat, my mom about family responsibilities. Then silence. I heard car doors slam. By the time the officer knocked, they were gone. He was a young guy, maybe 25. I explained everything. The ongoing harassment, showed him the texts, the emails. He wrote it all down, gave me a report number. "If they come back," he said, "call immediately." After he left, I texted Amelia the number. She responded within minutes. Exactly the documentation we need. Wednesday afternoon, I was on a client call when my phone buzzed. Voicemail. A number I didn't recognize. After the call, I listened. It was my dad's voice, but not from his phone. "We tried to be reasonable," he said, that cold edge I'd never heard before, "but you've left us no choice. We're cutting you out of our will unless you step up for family like you should have years ago." He went on about their disappointment, how I'd regret it when they were gone. I saved the voicemail, forwarded it to Amelia. "Does this matter?" She called back within the hour. "Financial manipulation," she said. "It strengthens your case significantly. Shows a pattern." I told her I probably wouldn't inherit much, maybe 20,000. "Doesn't matter what the amount is," she said. "What matters is them using it as a weapon." Save every voicemail, don't respond. Hanging up, I felt this weird mix of relief that it helped my case and deep hurt that my own dad had said those things out loud. Thursday morning, an email from Dante, my boss. "Private conversation needed." My stomach dropped. Video call at 10 o'clock. I spent an hour trying not to panic. At 10 o'clock, Dante looked concerned. My parents had called again yesterday, asking about my schedule, company family leave policies. He'd told them he couldn't discuss employee matters, but he needed to know what was going on. This was affecting my professional reputation. My eyes started to sting. I took a breath. I told him everything. About my parents trying to force me, the harassment, the lawyer. I pulled up the police report, Amelia's contact. He listened, his expression softening. He believed me, supported me, but was worried about my focus. I promised him it wouldn't affect my job, that I was taking legal steps. He told me to keep him updated. I sat there shaking after the call. They were actively trying to mess with my career now. Friday night, around 8 o'clock, my phone rang. Unrecognized number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. It was Suzanne, my mom's sister. She launched right in. "I heard what's happening," she said. "How could you abandon Holly? Your parents gave up everything." She said the family was calling me selfish, and she wanted my side, but she honestly didn't see how I could justify it. That familiar guilt started to rise, but then I remembered Amelia's words. "Don't engage." I took a breath, and calmly I explained the actual timeline. My childhood, the ambush, them showing up uninvited, leaving Holly at my door, the APS calls, the police report. Suzanne went quiet. "I need to think," she finally said. "I remember some stuff from when you were growing up that I hadn't really thought about at the time." She asked if she could call me back. "Yes," I said. A tiny spark of hope flickered. Maybe one family member would understand. The following Monday, I met Amelia at her downtown office to file the cease and desist letter. Her office was in an old building with paneling, bookshelves crammed with legal tomes. She showed me the draft, 2 pages long, listing every incident. Uninvited visits, workplace contact, social media campaign, financial threats. It demanded they stop contacting me, my employer coming to my residence. It outlined potential legal action, including restraining orders. Reading it made everything suddenly feel very real, very serious. I signed the authorization, wrote a check for her retainer. My savings account took a hit, but it felt necessary. Walking out, I felt both powerful and scared. I was officially escalating this. There was no going back. My parents' response came faster than I expected. Wednesday afternoon, my cousin Rachel sent me a screenshot. My mom's Facebook post. "Our ungrateful daughter has hired a lawyer to abandon her disabled sister." It went on, about them giving up everything, how I was throwing them away, how heartbroken they were, how they couldn't understand how they'd raised someone so selfish. The post had dozens of comments. Relatives, family friends, calling me heartless, telling me to be ashamed. My grandmother commented she was praying for my soul. Strangers were sharing it. I wanted to respond so badly, to scream the truth, but Amelia had warned me. Engaging would only make things worse. I called her instead. "Screenshot everything," she said. "This is defamation and harassment. We'll use all of this when we file for the restraining order." I spent the rest of the day blocking family members. Phone buzzing incessantly. Wednesday morning, a call from a government area code. Harvey Coleman, the social worker from APS. He was following up on both abandonment reports. "Do you have time for some detailed questions?" he asked. Yes. He asked about my childhood, how much time I'd spent caring for Holly, if I'd had normal kid experiences. I told him everything. No birthday parties, no sports, no friends because everything revolved around Holly. Never went to college visits because my parents couldn't leave her. Then he asked about their current behavior. I described the dinner ambush, the social media campaign, the workplace interference. When I finished, he was quiet. "What you've experienced," he said slowly, "is called parentification." I'd never heard the word. He explained it meant my parents had forced me into adult caregiving responsibilities as a child, when I should have been allowed to be a kid. "It's a form of abuse," he stated, "and it explains a lot about why you're so resistant to their current demands." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, feeling like someone had finally put a name to something I'd felt my entire life but never understood. Harvey said he'd schedule a home visit with my parents, assess Holly's care. He'd call me after. After we hung up, I immediately Googled parentification. An hour later, I felt like I'd just read the story of my life. Harvey called me back Friday afternoon. Holly's physical care was fine, he said. My parents had adequate resources. But then he said something that made me furious. During his visit, my parents had been telling Holly that I didn't love her anymore, that I'd moved away, forgotten her, didn't want to be her sister. Harvey said Holly seemed confused and sad when he asked about me. "Your parents are using Holly's emotions to manipulate you," he concluded. "It's harmful to Holly and completely inappropriate." He was documenting this, recommending counseling for my parents about appropriate boundaries. I thanked him, hung up, and sat there, shaking with anger. They weren't just harassing me. They were messing with Holly's head to punish me. Holly didn't understand. They were making her think I'd abandoned her. I texted Amelia. She responded. Another piece of evidence. Strong case. Ready to file for a restraining order. I typed back, yes, without hesitation. That weekend, I documented everything. Every Facebook post from my parents, screenshot with timestamp. Every hateful comment from relatives, saved. Nasty messages from strangers who found my personal accounts, into a folder. I built a timeline from that dinner ambush 2.5 months ago. Dates and times for every uninvited visit, every pressuring call, every manipulation. The police report, the voicemail about the will. By Sunday night, I had a 20-page document meticulously detailing their harassment. Amelia called Monday. I told her I'd finished. I emailed her the files. 2 hours later, she called back. "The evidence is solid," she said. "Social media posts alone show harassment and defamation. Add the workplace interference and physical intrusions. Strong case. We scheduled an appointment for Thursday to file the paperwork. Tuesday morning, my phone rang. Unrecognized number. It was the security guard from my company's main office building. "2 people are in the lobby demanding to speak with you," he said, "claiming to be your parents." They'd found the address online, driven over, even though he'd explained I worked remotely. "Do you want me to let them up?" "Absolutely not." I snapped. "Tell them to leave." He said they were refusing, getting loud. I had to call the building manager, explain that my parents were harassing me, that I was filing a restraining order. I felt so utterly embarrassed, dragging my family drama into my professional life. 20 minutes later, the guard called back. They'd finally left after the manager threatened to call the police. Thursday afternoon, I met Amelia at the courthouse. We filed for the restraining order. I had a folder almost 3 inches thick. Screenshots, police reports, employer documentation, Suzanne's statement, Harvey's letter. The clerk processed it all. We waited 2 hours. Then a small office. The judge looked through the evidence, asked a few questions. Then she granted a temporary restraining order and scheduled a full hearing for 2 weeks out. Walking out, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. I was legally separating myself from my parents. Part of me thought I should be sad, but mostly I just felt relief. Maybe, finally, the harassment would stop. The permanent restraining order hearing happened on a cold morning in early December. I was there with Amelia and our binders of evidence. My parents were there with their own lawyer, some slick guy in an expensive suit who kept looking at me like I was pure evil. Their lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, saying I was punishing my parents, using the legal system to avoid family responsibility. But then the judge started reviewing our evidence. She read Harvey's testimony about parentification, how I'd been forced into caregiving as a child. She looked at the screenshots of my personal information online, how they'd encouraged strangers to harass me. She reviewed the documentation of them showing up at my workplace, calling my employer. Then she asked about Holly's expressed wishes, Harvey's recommendation for group home placement. When she finished, she looked at my parents. "Your behavior," she stated, her voice firm, "has been inappropriate and controlling. You have no right to force your daughter into a caregiving role or to harass her when she sets boundaries." She granted a permanent restraining order right there. My parents weren't allowed to contact me, come to my home, or come to my workplace. They had to stay 500 feet away from me at all times. Sitting in that courtroom, listening to the judge validate everything I'd been feeling my whole life, made me want to cry with relief. Harvey called me the next week with updates about Holly's transition. He was working with my parents and a group home specialist. Holly had visited 3 places and absolutely loved one with younger residents and lots of activities. She was nervous but excited. She'd been attending orientation sessions, talking about having a roommate for the first time. Harvey said she'd asked about me, and he'd explained that I cared about her, but needed space from our parents right now. Hearing that Holly was actually happy about this move felt good and sad at the same time. Good, because she was finally getting opportunities for independence. Sad, because she should have had these chances years ago, instead of being kept at home because my parents assumed she couldn't handle change. Holly moved into the group home 2 days after Christmas. I kept seeing Natalie, my therapist, every week through January. The whole situation had left me feeling weird and mixed up. Some days I felt this immense relief that the harassment had stopped, that I could finally live my life without checking my phone every 5 minutes. Other days, the guilt would creep in. Maybe I should have tried harder, found some middle ground. Natalie kept reminding me that the guilt wasn't rational. My parents had trained me from childhood to feel responsible for Holly's happiness, for their stress. Just because that training was deep didn't make it true or fair. She walked me through every time I'd tried to set boundaries, offer suggestions, compromise, and my parents had shut me down, manipulated me. During one session, I told her I kept thinking about all those years I spent caring for Holly as a kid, wondering if I was a bad person for not wanting to do it again as an adult. Natalie looked at me. "You were never supposed to be Holly's caregiver in the first place," she said softly. "Children shouldn't raise their siblings. And choosing not to repeat an unfair pattern doesn't make you selfish or cruel." She helped me understand that my parents had their own problems with control and martyrdom, completely unrelated to me. Protecting myself from their dysfunction was healthy, even if other people said I was wrong. Suzanne called me in late January. She asked if I wanted to meet for coffee near my flat. I was nervous. Even though she'd apologized, part of me worried she'd try to guilt-trip me again. But when I got there, she ordered us drinks and immediately started talking about my mom's childhood in this quiet, serious way. My grandmother, she said, was exactly like my mom, always creating some crisis or emergency that made her the center of attention, making everyone else responsible for fixing her problems. When my mom was growing up, my grandmother would get sick or upset any time someone tried to be independent. The whole family had to drop everything. Suzanne explained that my mom learned to get importance and control by being the person who sacrificed everything. And now she was doing the same thing, making Holly's care this impossible burden that defined her whole identity. "This doesn't excuse how they treated you," Suzanne stressed, "but it helps me understand why they couldn't see how unfair they were being. My mom genuinely believed that suffering for your family was the only way to prove you loved them. She couldn't understand why I didn't want that same life." Hearing about that generational pattern, I felt sad for my mom in a way I hadn't before, like she was trapped in a cycle she didn't even recognize. But it also made me even more certain I'd done the right thing by breaking away. I didn't want to pass that dysfunction down to anyone else. Harvey called me in early February. He'd arranged for me to visit Holly at the group home. I was nervous driving over there, didn't know what to expect. Would Holly be angry that I hadn't taken her in like our parents wanted? But when I walked into the common room, Holly was sitting with another woman, watching TV. She lit up when she saw me. She wheeled over, talking fast about her roommate, the art class she'd joined, how a staff member was helping her make her own breakfast choices. She took me to her room, showing off how she'd decorated it with posters and photos, everything she'd picked. She introduced me to 2 staff members. "This is my sister," she said, in this proud way that made my chest feel tight. We sat in the common area for almost an hour. We had an actual conversation about her life, her activities, new friends, foods she wanted to try. It was completely different from all those years of me just managing her needs, trying to keep her calm. For the first time, we were talking like 2 real people, not caregiver and patient. I realized I'd never actually known Holly as a person until that moment. By early March, I'd fallen into a new routine. I saw Holly every other week, had coffee with Suzanne once a month. My parents were completely out of my life because of the restraining order. Honestly, most days I didn't even think about them. I still had sessions with Natalie every 2 weeks because some days the guilt would still hit me hard, usually triggered by something random. Seeing a family at the grocery store, a song that reminded me of childhood. On those days, I'd feel sad about the family rupture, wonder if there was some other way. But Natalie kept walking me through the facts, reminding me that I'd tried boundaries, suggestions, compromise, and my parents had responded with harassment and manipulation every single time. She helped me remember that I'd worked incredibly hard for my independent life. I deserved to keep it without sacrificing myself again. Holly was genuinely happy in the group home. With choices, community, staff who treated her like a capable adult instead of a permanent child. I could never have given her that kind of life, even if I'd let my parents move her into my flat. The restraining order meant I finally had peace and safety in my own home. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family, even when it felt impossible? Or have you witnessed something like this play out? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.